Hello Tradelands, welcome back to another video. Today, we are going to be discussing a conflict that took place between the months of July and August of the year 2025 between the Northern Mercantile Coalition and the Mazonian Order. The conflict, known as the Mercantile War, began formally on July 15th of 2025. However, it is important to first understand the political atmosphere of the unofficial Tradelands realm before we get into the details of the war. The Northern Mercantile Coalition, a Hallandgard trading company, had long been an enemy of the Mazonian Order, as the Mazonian Order was founded by multiple ex-NMC members that had seceded due to political disagreements. A smaller conflict had recently ended on the 29th of June, 2025, after the previous war failed to achieve anything meaningful for either side. Tensions once again resurfaced after Mazonians broke their promises of peace and began to raid NMC trading vessels, aggravating the Northern Mercantile Coalition and creating distrust between the two groups. The first recorded encounter of Mazonian raids was reported on the 8th of July, 2025. Over the next few days, tensions boiled over, and war was informally declared on July 15th. A day later, tensions between the Mazonian Order and the Royal Tide Company, a new group that had begun to work closely with the Northern Mercantile Coalition, resulted in a separation of ties and the ceasing of diplomacy between both groups. The first organized battle of the war took place 2 days after, on the 18th, when the Royal Tide Company and the Northern Mercantile Coalition sank a Mazonian Wyvern and Phoenix at the cost of a single, unmanned Wyvern. The first battle of the war had resulted in an NMC victory with the help of RTC. This resulted in the creation of an alliance between the two and a third group to rival the growing influence of pirate crews in the face of trading company profits. The Trinity Alliance was forged between the Northern Mercantile Coalition, the Royal Tide Company, and the Continental Navy, a third group based on Nova Balresca at the time. To make matters worse for the Mazonians, a smaller pirate crew with big ambitions called Tora, ran by a player named Quat Hayanaito, declared its intentions to claim the title of Pirate King for itself, and condemned the Mazonian Order as enemies of Blackwind. Tora allied with the Royal Tide Company and promised to help it against the Mazonian Order in the future. Drama between the two groups continued behind the scenes, and small, petty clashes between trade runners and raiding pirates from the Mazonian Order took place frequently. The second formal battle took place on the 22nd of July, when an NMC trade run was intercepted by a Mazonian fleet. However, the Mazonian fleet was repulsed by a Continental Navy Osprey, which sacrificed itself to save its NMC counterparts. The Continental Navy's participation in the war was limited. However, their members were present at the majority of significant battles. Rarely did the Continental Navy engage the Mazonian Order by itself, however, as they were busy with their own war against the 1st Salem Regiment at the time. On the 27th of July, the Jeromean Order declared the participation of Tora illegitimate, as Tora had failed to do anything meaningful and had reportedly died in activity. Their participation in the conflict was ignored, and Tora would later disband and merge with an official pirate crew called Undead. On August 6th of 2025, the Northern Mercantile Coalition uploaded a video to YouTube showing an NMC ship sinking an unmarked Blackwind Falcon, claiming the boat to be of the official crew, the Scurvy Scallywags, owned by John Blackwind. John Blackwind was furious, as the ship turned out to be unaffiliated with any crew, and the video uploaded to YouTube only served to mock him and his crew. Because of this, the scurvy scallywags allied with the Mazonian Order and joined the war against the Trinity Alliance the same day. The third battle took place later in the evening, on August 6th, the largest battle of the conflict, with over 20 people on each side. The Trinity Alliance versus the Mazonian Order, TSS, and the supporting Windrock Navy clashed around the Windrock in a public server. The battle resulted in the loss of 2 NMC Wyverns, a Mazonian Phoenix, a Mazonian Wyvern, a TSS Wyvern, and another Blackwind Phoenix. The battle was another victory for the Trinity Alliance, their greatest victory yet. The battle was humiliating for the pirate crews. However, it taught them valuable lessons and strengthened their resolve. The next day, a Mazonian patrol targeted a neutral Sinlandian trade run, resulting in the loss of a Sinlandian camel. Sinlandia, outraged by this betrayal, would declare its support for the Trinity Alliance and unofficially enter the war on their side. At the same time, the Valkyrie Trading Association, another new trading company, joined the war on the side of the Mazonian Order due to their negative relationship with the Royal Tide Company and their positive opinion of the Mazonian Order. VTA's participation in the conflict became crucial in the final days, as the fourth and final battle of the conflict was spearheaded by its members and supported by Mazonians. Prior to the fourth battle, a week of peace between the two sides ensued. Only small clashes and raids took place, involving the loss of an NMC Camel and Februar hauler due to the poor coordination of its crews, and an NMC Poseidon later on. Besides this, nothing changed and everything continued as normal. On the 13th of August, the Trinity Alliance hosted a parade of over a dozen ships belonging to each of the companies within it. A Mazonian raiding party had been present, however, due to the overwhelming numbers of their counterparts and their inability to safely sink anything. The Mazonians simply joined the parade, and the two sides tolerated each other for a short amount of time. This helped to better relations between the two sides and paved the way for an agreement between the two, and the end of the war. On the 15th of August, the Holy Empire of Sinlandia proposed a treaty between the two opposing factions to put an end to the war. Fighting had subsided, and after a long month of large battles and constant fighting, both physical and emotional, the two sides were exhausted and prepared to put their differences aside. The Sinlandians were determined to create peace, as they were worried prolonging the war would result in a loss of profits or the death of an allied group. Not to mention that for some, the war had become too serious and personal, and rumor spreading had begun to affect the reputations of various people involved. The Sabbath Day Treaty was proposed and was quickly signed by the Northern Mercantile Coalition, the Royal Tide Company, the Holy Empire of Sinlandia, and the Mazonian Order. The Continental Navy, however, refused to sign the treaty and instead chose to enter a state of neutrality rather than peace, so that they could focus on their own objectives. The treaty would go into effect 2 days after its inception, August 17th. On the 16th of August, the final battle would take place between the two sides, as a joint VTA, Mazonian fleet, engaged a Trinity Alliance trade fleet off the coast of Whitecrest as they were en route to Nassau. The battle, although inconclusive, resulted in the loss of a Sinlandian Wyvern in exchange for a VTA Wyvern. The battle was large in size, and although the VTA were outnumbered and outgunned, managed to inflict impressive damage unto their opponents through coordination and exercised caution. The battle served as nothing more than a conclusion to a conflict that had caused so much stress and had firmly cemented the place of the Northern Mercantile Coalition and Royal Tide Company as the dominators of the trading company world. Their power had become unmatched due to their intense mobilization and military reforms enacted across the course of the war, and so had that of the Masonian Order. The war officially ended on the 17th, and peace remained between the two sides for 2 months until the 14th of September, when the treaty was declared invalid. Nevertheless, the war was a massive, long, dragged-out conflict that completely defined the summer of 2025 in Tradelands.